rev up your engines. Today I'm going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes I've ever made as a mechanic fixing cars. Now, it may be a cliche that you learn from your mistakes, but like many cliches, there's a lot of truth in the saying. Now, I've been fixing cars by myself for the last 50 years, and I've fixed thousands of cars, but I'll tell you, the ones that I remember the most in depth were the ones that I made mistakes on, so I'd never make that same mistake again. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I ever made had to do with fixing a Porsche, but not this Porsche. It was a 911 turbocharged Porsche, and it had a leaking intake manifold gasket. It was one of the early ones that had plastic intake manifolds. And just like many of you, I'm a DIY guy who does it all by myself. I don't have a ton of really specialized equipment, so I attempted to do it on the car by just opening the back and working on the engine from the top. Needless to say, it took many, many hours, but I finally got it back on and got the car running again. It was a really gigantic pain. But then a few months later, I was at a Porsche dealer talking to a German friend of mine who was a mechanic there, and I told him what I'd done, and he said, "Scotty, why did you even try that?" He said he didn't even think that was possible, because at the dealer, they just got their engine hoist machine, and they would take the engine out of the car, drop it off, work on it on the ground, and then put it all back in again. So I said, "But Hans, didn't that cost a lot of money?" And he said, "Of course it did. If somebody wants to drive one of these Porsches, they better be prepared to pay to the nose to fix it." And the lesson, at least for me and most do-it-yourself guys, is I'll never do another one of those jobs on a 911. If they're gonna have complicated jobs that require very special equipment, don't try to do the job. It's not worth the hassle. Now, the next big mistake I made was when I was younger. The first car I bought, I only paid $500 and part of it was smashed up. So I fixed the bodywork, but then I decided I was gonna paint the whole car. And then was that a mistake? Now, it was a red car, and I did paint the whole thing, so at least now it was all one color. But it really only looked good after it rained when the water all beat it up. Because once it was dry, if you look closely at a lot of parts, you could see orange peels all over the place where the paint wasn't evenly put on. So I don't advise anybody to paint their entire car. You need a paint booth, you need a really good environment that doesn't have dust and too much humidity. It's something that's best left to a pro. Another big mistake is I'd buy tools only to find that I hardly ever used them, or I didn't even use them at all. Now, yes, you want good jack stands, good jacks, a decent scan tool. When it comes to really specialty equipment, a lot of times it doesn't make sense for you to buy that kind of stuff. Now, if you scan through all these tools that I've amassed over 50 years, I know I was cleaning up the other day and I found some tools that I got and I never even used them. That money was all wasted. I mean, now I'm in a different situation. Companies are always sending me tools because they want me to use them in my videos, so I'll try anything out since I'm not buying it, and if they are good tools at a good price, I'll talk about them here on my YouTube channel. But you're not going to see Scotty forking out his hard-earned money to buy tools that he's never going to use or only use once or twice. As an example, if you're going to do some lightweight heating, you can get a propane torch and heat up metal parts to get them hot to take them apart. They don't cost hardly anything at all. But you might do a lot of heavy thinking before you'll buy even a small welding kit like this for $400 to $500. You may not be using it all that much, or heck, maybe a bunch of your friends could get together and you each throw in 40 bucks or 50 bucks, and then you can share it. You're not using it all the time, and they come in pretty handy for some serious problems when metal is really stuck. Now, the last biggest mistake I ever made has to do with car batteries. I was always trying to save my customers money, so years ago, I was always going out and buying the cheapest batteries I could get my hands on to save them money. But lo and behold, that bit me in the behind many times. Sometimes 6 months later, they'd be back and the battery was dead. Or a year later, even though it was like a 4-year battery. Don't go out and buy the cheapest batteries you can get your hands on. Especially with complex modern cars, everything's electronic. If the battery is weak, you're not getting enough power, the car can go bananas. Buy good quality batteries. Sure, you're gonna pay a little bit more, but hey, if you amortize it over the years that you owned it, you're only talking about pennies a day. So now you know some of the biggest mistakes I've ever made fixing cars. And if you're like me and you work by yourself, hey, you wanna save money, but you don't wanna do things wrong. And now heck, You don't even have to make the mistake yourself. You can learn from my mistakes, so you'll never make that mistake yourself. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.